You're tuning in to Why We're Here, honest conversations about companies worth joining, with Amit Matani, CEO of Wellfound.
Hey everyone, I am here with Dana Dunford, the CEO and co-founder of Hemlane. Dana, thanks for joining us.
Great. Thanks so much for having me, Amit.
So talk to me a little bit about Hemlane. What do you all do?
Yeah, so we're in the real estate space. We're in the sexy industry of property management. Probably all of you listening to this right now has not given one thought to property management. But what I do have to say is every single person listening to this is either renting a home or has rented where they live. And so property management is one of the most important industries in my own personal opinion and everyone here at Hemlane. And we're here to make that experience that much better.
So tell me about the founding story. As you mentioned, it's not quite as well known of an industry. What got you excited about solving this problem?
Yeah, so it actually started with personal problem and passion. My family had some real estate investments. I started getting involved on the investing side of buying rental properties that, would have go and list it for rent and have tenants move into. And I realized the entire experience was very negative. There's like a stigma associated with being a landlord, which they called slumlords, a lot of people. And then on top of that, on the tenant side, oh, I'm not good enough to own a home. I rent a home. And so we really set out to reduce and eliminate that stigma, but more importantly, make it where both owners and tenants had a better experience. And so my experience was probably very similar to many rental owners who own a real estate investment. Property management is second lowest rated industry on Angie, second to home warranty. And so there isn't a lot of trust in the space. There isn't a lot of transparency. It's actually not property managers' fault. It actually has to do with a lot of the tech they use. And so we went after that. But what we really wanted to do is elevate everyone's experience associated with owning rental properties as well as living in them.
So talk to me a little bit about how does the product actually work? What is my day-to-day using the product? Paint me that picture.
Yeah, great. So everyone, how they use it is different. We're a platform. So from a platform perspective, you can get both the software, so the SaaS, coupled with the services. So let's just say you have a rental property, and I know you're in New York, I'm in San Francisco. Let's just say your rental property is in San Francisco. You can go ahead at any time and order an inspection for someone to go out, do an inspection for you. You can get 24/7 repair coordination. So if you know nothing about repairs and troubleshooting them, you can get an experienced repair coordinator who always picks up the phone, does the troubleshooting, dispatches the service professionals, helps with pricing, making sure the price is fair, and goes through that entire process. And then how we do those services is a combination of both technology and humans working very closely together to provide that 5-star experience for both your tenant as well as for you.
That's really cool. It's interesting because in my current rental apartment, I definitely have a great landlord. He's really responsive. And my last one, it was terrible. And you can just, the difference in happiness that I have is so much. Yeah. So I'm glad you guys are making that process easier for everybody. Tell me a little bit. So you've been at it for a little bit of time, 8 years, right? As I saw, and technology, especially automation, has, I'm sure, gotten a lot easier with all the LLM stuff and generative AI stuff. Has that affected your roadmap at all?
Oh, totally. It's completely transformed and changed our roadmap of axing a lot of things that we were going to be doing manually and being able to speed it up. At the same time, I think you have to do it right. So AI is obviously a word that everyone says you need in your tech company. Yeah. I've seen far too many say they're an AI company and they're not, or use AI and say it's solving customers' problems. And all you have to do is call those customers to realize it doesn't solve those customers' problems. And so we definitely use it, always looking to be on the forefront of it at the same time for our vertical, right? Yeah. At the same time, very much saying there's still a human touch needed now. And how much context can you give AI to eventually have high EQ is a question we talk about very, very often.
So tell me a little bit about what the overall vision is for the next 5 years or so, and what are the big milestones you all are working towards?
Yeah, so you can go to Mars and we will manage your rental property while you're on
Yeah.
Mars.
That's great.
That's it. We'll also be able to manage the properties that are on Mars. That's kind of a long term, but no, I think really when it comes down to it, there's a couple of things that we're looking to do. I'll start just on the side of the industry we're in. We're trying to help solve the affordability gap. We're doing rent by rooms now as well that owners can put on the platform. We're trying to incentivize more people to purchase properties for long-term rentals because we don't do Airbnbs, we don't do vacation rentals long-term where someone lives. Um, and then on top of that, provide tenants with the ability to understand and follow the lease and pay their rent on time and all of that, but also provide them a path to home ownership. That's kind of like on the vision side and passion side of what we do in property management, which you probably never thought about
Sure.
until this conversation. I think on like the tangible roadmap of what we're doing is continuing to take the services we do and give all of our customers time to value faster. So let's just talk about repair coordination, right? Our average time to dispatch a service professional is between 24 to 48 hours, highly dependent on where the property is and priority. If it's a P1 or a P0, it's dispatched within 2 hours. So that's like no water, like that would be dispatched right
Sure.
away.
Yeah.
But the question is, how do we speed that up? How do we speed up that time to value for tenants? How do we speed it up for owners? Same thing with something as simple as lease renewals. It's if you own a rental property, you're always anxious of, am I going to have a turnover? Are my
Right.
tenants going to sign the lease? And then on the tenant side, being like, oh my gosh, how much are they going to increase the rent by? Am I going to have to find a new place? So how do you use technology to make that process more seamless for both parties? All of that is what we continue to talk about and put into the platform itself, to just speed up that time to value and make it where you can go anywhere and from your phone, get whatever you want as a tenant, and on the owner side, do the same.
Very. So what's your pitch to candidates? How do you get them excited about joining Hemlane?
Yeah. So for us, it's really about changing real estate and changing how it's operated. Rental properties are 40% of the industry. There's so many folks that go onto the buy sell side of innovation. So, the compasses of the world innovating on buy sell. But everyone starts in a rental property and there hasn't been any innovation.
Right.
And it's also one where it's not you just buy it and you walk away. Yeah, you have to manage it. And so I think from that perspective, first, we just get people excited about homes in general and providing people homes. The second thing is I truly believe it has to do with personality and where you look to work. You need to be a really good culture fit. And so culture comes first for us. And we have basically three values that if you have these same values align with ours, you're going to love it here at Hemlane. And so that's really what we start with. Every interview is with our three values.
Tell me those three values. What are they?
Yeah. The first one is it's actually our office in Calgary looks like this. It's glass walls, open doors. And what that basically means is in order to work at the speed we work, because we're not slow. I would say every one of our engineers does the work of 20 engineers somewhere else. Same with product, same with every single department. But what that basically means is you need a lot of transparency. That's the glass walls. You need a lot of transparency in everything you do. So you have to be comfortable with knowing like, hey, everything I've done is there on Slack or in meetings. We talk about my successes. We also talk about my failures. And that's where the open doors come in, where we really focus on saying, hey, how do we help you? Open your door if you need some sort of help. But we first need that transparency in order to be able to help grow you, help solve a complex problem. And so communication and collaboration are so key at Hemlane. And when we have that communication and collaboration, we've noticed everything moves at the speed of light. And that's obviously what we want for both anyone working at Hemlane, their careers, as well as for the innovation within the industry.
What else? What are the other two? I mean,
Yeah, the next one is probably one that a lot of Silicon Valley companies have. It's get shit done.
Sure.
You just have to be able to execute. And if you're not, if you're much more on just the visionary side of, hey, I have this vision, but I can't actually implement or execute on it, then that's not going to work for us. What we love is someone taking a problem and seeing it through and being able to go from point A to point Z with people helping them along the way and really being able to execute at a fast speed. And then the third one we have is be your own CEO. I think that's really important because I don't like to tell people what to do. I like people to tell me what we should be doing.
Right.
And we have a very flat hierarchy. So folks who want to come in and say, I'm going to be a manager and tell people what to do, that doesn't really work well at Hemlane. What we really like is to say, hey, you know what? You just started in customer success and you have a really cool idea of how to implement AI into your job or whatever
Right.
it may be. We want to listen. We want to hear from you. We want your ideas to be heard. And so that type of flat hierarchy and organization is really important for us because we found that brings out some of the best ideas that we've actually had here at Hemlane.
I'd love to get into like the tactics of this because culture is interesting, values are interesting because you're trading off something, right? Like you can't just get everything you want. You have to decide like, hey, we're not going to get something else because of that. So what is that trade-off? What do you have to say no to in terms of your values to have the ones that you currently have?
Like basically of the team members that we have here at Hemlane, what are some that we have to say no to?
Not the team members, but like, I think, for example, get shit done, right? Like
Yeah.
a lot of people love that value, but like I
Yeah.
think values are really interesting when they're also saying like, okay, we want to get shit done, but that also means that, okay, we're okay with a certain amount of bugs or something. That's kind of our trade-off. Or we want to
Yeah.
get shit done, but we're
Yeah.
okay with like being really focused and not doing everything, right? Like when you think about your values, what are like maybe the anti-values that the
Yeah.
company has?
Yeah, and actually, maybe a good way to put it are maybe what are some of the faults that may be
Yeah.
hard? 'Cause every culture is different,
Yeah.
and no culture like every personality type lends its way to a certain culture,
Yeah.
and there's always pros and cons to everything
Sure.
that you do. I think I can talk about each one of those with transparency and just like this open door policy and being able to share things. There are often times that people feel like they're getting pinged too much
Mm,
on Slack or whatever.
right.
And so what basically happens is like, oh my gosh, everything is so transparent. How do I focus on this one
Right.
thing and do this
Right.
really well? How we try to counter that is we say we have like a GitHub actually has the best one. We went off of what GitHub has. In our company handbook, we essentially have a list of how to use Slack correctly,
Mm,
communication channels
right.
correctly. Because what should happen is in, let's just say it's a leasing channel, or it's in the repairs channel, or the customer success channel. When you say at channel, it alerts everyone
Sure.
it's distracting. So it's like
Right.
you should put your stuff in there if it's a business development on the sales side. But don't ping everyone, only ping someone if they truly need to action it.
Right.
But that way people know what's going on and someone who might be interested in what's going on with business development or what's going on with product because I'm on the sales team and I need to know they
Right.
can see it without getting alerted. But I think that transparency and what
Right.
I call over communication, some people think it's a negative because they say over communication could be fault, some sort of fault and have a lot of disruptions and distractions, should I say.
That makes sense. What about the other side of like, I think going through the startup journey a few times myself, I feel like the highs are very high, but the lows are very low. And how do you keep your team involved in all of that, like ups and downs, or are you trying to shield them? And how does that play into the transparency?
Yeah, I think you have to. So I'm a very transparent founder, almost to a fault. Like I share a full P&L, I share a cash balance, I
Yeah.
share everything with the team.
Very cool.
I don't think there's very many founders who do that. And it is the glass walls, open doors. Like
Right.
if I didn't do that, how can I
Right.
expect others to?
Right.
And so I'm very transparent about how things go because I set that expectation. This is a startup. We're on this rocket ship together and the rocket ships sometimes break in certain situations and you've got to fix them. But if people don't know what my biggest problems are, then we all can't solve those together. And so some folks think it's at a fault, but for me, as long as the rest of the company and team is moving that direction of wanting things to be transparent, I find everyone is aligned and moving the same direction, and people aren't worried about, what's going on? When are we going to be raising
Right.
capital next? Because
Right.
they know everything.
Right. That's fair. Paint me a picture of what the company looks like now. Like where are you all located? What's the team size? What's the composition of like different roles?
Yeah, it's such an interesting one because we have pretty strong opinions of how the composition of the team be. But there's also some things that we still sort of are still trying to figure out, should I say. So, for example, we have two offices. I'm in our San Francisco office. We also have an office in Calgary. Calgary is focused on sales and operations, and then San Francisco is product and development, right? However, and we have a hybrid model. So you're in the office 2 to 3 days of the week, you're at home for the other days. I find that to be really incredibly helpful with osmosis, learning from others, especially younger team members, and developing them. However, some of our biggest rock stars are not in those two offices. They are remote because we hired them during COVID. We were
Sure.
trying to figure out whether it was all remote, return to office, or some sort of
Yeah.
hybrid. And so we have some pretty strong opinions. Those absolute rock stars who are remote follow our values. So because they're so transparent through glass walls and open doors, we find that it's like, it almost feels like they're in the room with you.
Mm,
Right. However, one thing I have to say is every single one of those who is remote is very, very senior. And so from a training and development perspective, they don't need as much.
right.
And so our viewpoint on it has been, we always prefer San Francisco or Calgary in any time we hire. And then if we cannot find someone in that area that's up to the a level of expectation we would have for this particular role, then we look and recruit elsewhere.
That's very practical. I haven't heard that one before. I found that companies like, yeah, we're do remote, or no, we're in the office and must be, but like that seems very practical. That's cool. How do you, for those particular people, like how do you make sure their knowledge is being transferred to the younger people, right? Like if these are your rock stars, you want people learning from them. Are they just really good at, being transparent and being on Slack and stuff?
Yeah, very transparent. And also just saying, for example, if they hear a younger person be like, wait, how did you do that? They
Hmm.
will immediately on Slack be like, get on a Zoom or a huddle
I
with
see.
me right
Right,
now
right,
and
right.
let me show you how I did it.
That's fair.
But I do believe in like a culture. I have some pretty strong opinions on it. I don't think all remote really works if you're trying to grow and scale a company massively,
Yeah.
because eventually you have to hire and develop folks.
Hmm.
And I do think that learning through osmosis, like I remember in my early days, and I'm dating myself, but back in 2008, I was learning by just watching someone being like, wait, how did
Right.
you do that? What
Right.
shortcut was that?
Right.
And hearing someone's conversation and being like, oh my gosh, listen to how they spoke to a customer. I need to
Right.
pick that up.
Right.
And so I do think as much as you can try for that hybrid model, I know some are very against it and say
Right.
remote first. But I also think training and developing. And my goal is that every single person at Hemlane eventually becomes their own CEO. Like I do
Sure.
want people to can move up and develop. And so from that perspective, I'm a huge fan of learning
Yeah.
from others to do that.
Talk to me a little bit about how things get done at Hemlane. Like, maybe how an idea, gets, where do the ideas come from? How do ideas get put into production code and shipped?
Yeah, great. So we have a lot of like product planning meetings where people come with their ideas, but we also try to make it where you could bring that idea off cycle. However, it has to be well thought out. And so really the manager or like team lead, I should say, is really the gatekeeper of that. So if we can have each gatekeeper say, the idea has to come to me, and it's not that I have to agree with the idea, but it has to be fully thought out. That helps from all the pings of the silly ideas where it's like,
Right.
great, thanks for bringing me that idea that's going to impact one customer. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because
Right.
like you could have customer success come to you with 5,000 ideas,
Right.
but it impacts an N of 20 or 100, and that's not a big enough N.
Right.
And so I think from that perspective, it's really taking your leads in each part of the organization and saying every single thing needs, what is it? Like, what's the problem? Why is it a problem? What is the recommended solution, which may not be the solution we use to solve it? by the way. But like, and then the biggest thing is, what is the impact? Like, what is the impact if we do this? What is the impact if we don't? And it has to be well thought out. And that's where the be your own CEO is really important, because we need you to come to us and actually say, I'll lead this, I'll stand by it, and I'll stand behind the metrics of what I'm trying to do. And then it does flesh out a lot of ideas right at that stage. But some of the coolest ideas, especially like even on the AI side, where we weren't thinking about solving it this way, it was like they had all the data, all the stats of how this was going to work. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. We should be thinking of AI for this. And I think a lot of problems is people think of AI as a solution before they have a problem.
Sure.
But if the team can come to us with a problem, come with a couple of solutions, we might think about it slightly differently, but it was better than what they had, and then they can execute on it and they can lead that project.
That makes sense. So you've been working on Hemlane for about 8 years. What have you learned for the last few? I mean, what would you want to tell yourself 8 years ago that would have sped up the path to where you currently are?
Yeah, one of the things I really always toggle with Hemlane is we built the entire platform right up front. And so if you kind of think about it, I think Marco Zappacosta from Thumbtack did a really good job with like a visual picture of this. He said, when you take products to market, you want to start with the skateboard, where it's fully like someone can ride the skateboard, then the scooter, then the car, then the motorcycle, car, truck, semi-truck, right? For us, I think in the early days, we were like, we're going to build the whole platform right away, because a landlord needs all of it, not just one thing. They need the whole thing, and one single point solution doesn't work for them. And so we spent a lot of time trying to build the whole thing, at least the software side. And then we started adding on our tech-enabled services of repair coordination, eviction shields, self-guided tours. We started adding all of those later. But one of the things I always grapple with is, how do you grow and scale faster? And it's a question we always ask at Hemlane. And in those early days, the one question that I would have is, could we have done it where we built a skateboard first? And that would have been like just tenant placement and done that really well. And then it's like, okay, now add the next thing of rent collection. And so I think, am I looking back regretting it? Absolutely not. I love everything I've learned. But at the same time, I think when you're starting a company and thinking about growing and scaling it, sequencing is very important. And if you think about sequencing of how to do it, I think the founders that go like this really, really fast right on day one, and then 12 months are at 10 million in revenue. When you look at those, it's because they did a good job sequencing and really focusing on one thing, versus us saying build the whole platform. Now it's to our advantage. We have the whole thing. But I think back then it led to slower growth initially for longer term gains now.
It's tough too, right? Because especially now, maybe less so before, but now there's so much competition, and it's like, okay, well, you can do the point solution, but how many point solutions are available at this point? But I guess that's what great founders are able to find,
Well, and you need sequencing, to your point, because a lot of times what happens is, if you are a point solution, you sell yourself to the platform. And then you never make the platform and you're less valuable. And so I think you need in that sequencing to say, you know what, we will solve this one thing, but we have to become the platform. Because if you're not the platform, you're a single point solution. And by the way, when you're a single point solution, eventually, if you're that good of a single point solution, the platform is going to build you and take all that margin from you.
That's the tough part.
So
makes sense. What are the things that you're most excited about for this year?
Yeah, a couple of, I'm so excited about so many different things. The first is on localization. Real estate is a local game, and we've been really focused. I was just out in Pittsburgh, out in a couple places here in California, and headed on a couple of other trips, really thinking about localization and how do we work with partners to deliver things faster and make it feel like you have a total team on the ground no matter where you are. So localization is a huge one for us. I mean, we're in all 50 states. You can manage your properties anywhere, but the amount of services we have vary based on population size and who our network is. So localization is huge, going market to market. That I'm excited about. The other thing I'm really excited about is, I'd be remiss if I didn't say this, is obviously the AI stuff. I think it's really going to help. Done right, it's going to take all of the IQ stuff off of the plate of the day to day and have our team focus on the EQ for now. So that's another one that I'm really excited about. And then the third one that I'm excited about is just growing the team. I think there's a lot of, from that perspective, on both operations, product, and we're going to really need to build out the team and the processes, scaling those local operations. And so I'm excited about that as well.
Is there anything you look for as you build your team in terms of, things that candidates can do to like stand out?
Yeah, standing out, I think, is really important. And I think a lot of it has to do with your past and your performance. I always love having conversations where someone can really get into the details and tell me what they did and how they took a project from idea all the way to implementation. I love that so much. And I also love candidates who are constantly asking why.
Hmm.
So in every process in the job, it's like, well, why do I send out that report every
Right.
Friday? Maybe I don't send it out and see if
Right.
anyone says anything. If they don't, it was a waste of time. So I look for examples of how they've asked the why to improve the process. And then I really think you can't change personality at all. You can teach skills, but you can't change personality. And so one thing I really look for is those reference checks. Is someone jumping on the phone saying, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're getting this person. This
Mhm.
person is an absolute rock star. Here's the 12 things they did to make a difference at our
Right.
company." And so I really think those things are really important. And in seeing, I'm not too much into like the resume is great, but all I need to see on the resume is what you did, why you did it, and what the impact was for the company. And just those bullet points
That's good.
pretty much
Yeah.
is good for me.
Awesome. Thanks, Dana. It's been great talking to you, learning a little bit more about Hemlane. If people want to learn more about Hemlane, where should they go?
Yeah, you can go to www.hemlane.com. We've got a careers section there. You can also email careers@hemlane.com and also go to Wellfound and check us out there.
Thanks, Dana.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to Why Work Here. Ready to find your next role or discover top talent? Visit us at wellfound.com.